Hey everybody, welcome to Labor Street Park. Our guest today is the radio voice of the North Texas Mean Green, Zac Babb, my good friend, my former colleague at KNTU. Zac, my first question to you is, UNT scored a monumental upset in the NCAA tournament this year. As you know, before that, the best moment in school history was beating Arkansas in football. So, just tell me about beating Purdue, the whole experience associated with that, and how exciting that was.
Man, that was a lot of fun. I got to be on the board for that. In addition to me, who's one of the voices of the Mean Green, there's also Dave Barnett and Hank Dickinson, and they were both on the call for that in Indianapolis itself. I got to be behind the scenes running the board to basically firing off all the commercials and doing the halftime report and things of that nature. And that was so cool to listen to. It was a great game. It was back and forth. No one ever really found an edge until overtime. When it went to overtime and North Texas went on, I think it was a 10-0 run to start OT and kind of put the game away. So it was a blast. It was great exposure for the school, and it's something that people here in Denton are still talking about and probably will talk about for quite a while.
How much of a gap is there between that moment and like the second best moment in UNT sports?
Man, see, you brought up the Arkansas thing, and that's one that I'm not sure. That might be 1 and 2, and they might be neck and neck. Because I still think I'd put the NCAA tournament at number 1 just because of the national exposure that brought. But that beating Arkansas on the road with the fake fair catch and all the national exposure that's got to be a close number 2. But then there's a giant drop off between 2 and 3, whatever you want 3 to be. 3 might be one of the early, making the tournament in like 2007 or 2010 or something like that. But it's a far cry from what those 2 are in North Texas lore.
Certainly not the 2015 season going 1-11.
No, that was we don't like to talk about that.
So, have we peaked? Like, are we going to lose the coach and be terrible at basketball next year? Or are we going to be competitors? And we, as in we, UNC.
I think it's going to be a little bit of a year of growth because it's looking like as of right now, Grant McCaslin's going to stick around. He wants to stay in the area. Kind of in the North Texas to Oklahoma, West Texas area. He's really happy with that. His family's here. His wife lives it here. So really the only 2 jobs I could have seen him taking was Oklahoma or Texas Tech, and both of those got filled. So I think he's going to be sticking around for another year. Now, the only thing is we are losing basically the entire roster that took us to the NCAA tournament this year. So it's going to be a lot of new, fresh faces on the team. You'll have a couple guys coming back, but for the most part, it's going to be an entirely new starting 5. You're going to have some new guys coming off the bench. So it wouldn't shock me if I'm not going to say the team's going to be terrible by any means or bad, but I think there is going to be some growth that's going to have to be learned by some of these new players heading into the next season.
Absolutely. And I'm about to pass it to my friend over here. But first, we know that you travel for your job. You go to all the Conference USA cities. I guess the question people ask you is, what's the best city you've traveled to in your job? But I want to turn that on its head. What's the worst city you've traveled to in your job, and why is it Murfreesboro?
And why is it Murfreesboro? I think it might be Murfreesboro. There was, oh my goodness. I've been there one time, and I don't really care to go back again unless work absolutely has to come there.
Take that, Murfreesboro.
Yeah, there's not a lot to do in Murfreesboro except to play Middle Tennessee, and even then, Middle Tennessee doesn't have the best athletic teams at the moment, so you're usually going there to watch a pretty poor quality product. So I'd say yes, it is Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
And just do the opposite. Which one's the best?
Norfolk,
USA City.
Norfolk, Virginia.
Norfolk, Virginia. Old Dominion.
Yep, Old Dominion, home of Old Dominion. It's a little port city. It's got a lot of history to it. That was probably one of the more fun road trips I've been around, because in the downtime, we're basically there for, you get there a day before the game, then you play the game, then you leave the next day. So there's a lot of downtime to go do things. And there was a bunch of sightseeing I could do around Norfolk. I remember the thing that kind of stands out to me the most was there was a church down the road from our hotel, our team hotel, that had a cannonball from the Revolutionary War wedged in one of the bricks still. And so that was just cool to go, oh, look, there's a 300-year-old cannonball from the American Revolution just wedged in this church building. And so things like that are all over Norfolk, and that's why I loved it so much.
I don't have shit like that in Murfreesboro.
Nope, not at all.
All right, what do you got, Sebastian?
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up with the basketball team and Reuben Jones. Is he still gonna play for Denton next year?
Yes, I think he's one of the few guys who's going to come back. So he's going to be one of the leaders that this team really kind of looks to up in this coming year here.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at his 40% three-point shooting, and I know you're saying a lot of the team's leaving, but he's coming back. Do you expect a much larger role for him this season?
Yeah, I think so. If anything, I think he's going to be one of the guys that Coach McCaslin's really going to have to lean on and turn to, because you have no more Zach Simmons, you have no more Javion Hamlet. Your two biggest guys in terms of shooting and then down low play are going away. So it wouldn't shock me if he's the guy that McCaslin decides to lean on the most as the season comes through. And I think his role will really expand. No more James Reese either. That's another guy who's gone, who carried a big role last season. So I think you'll see a lot more Reuben Jones out of the McCaslin offense.
And we love Reuben Jones. But let's turn this conversation for a second. Put your pundit hat on for a second. How do we combat vaccine misinformation?
Wow. How do we combat vaccine misinformation? Isn't this something that's a little more up your train of thought here, Matt Reyna?
Well, we have this segment in the show called Put Your Pundit Hat On, and we have somebody completely unqualified to answer something like this. So,
what do you think?
What do you think?
Man, I think it's just the best thing that I can think of is just doing kind of like they're doing right now, where it's just a battery of information about what vaccines what the vaccine does and how it protects against COVID. Because that's the thing I hear a lot, just in my own little radio world, be it on KNTU or on one of the sports stations in Dallas, is you hear a lot of ads running about, hey, here's what the COVID vaccine does, and here's how it can affect you and make it better and get us back to normal. And so that's kind of been the most reassuring thing I've heard, is kind of the general everyday person media, not even like a Fox or a MSNBC or something like that, but just your local sports station playing a radio ad about, hey, go get the vaccine and here's how it's safe for you and it will get us back to normal, and so on and so forth.
But here's my deal on that.
Okay.
You must not be on Twitter, because
I try and stay away from Twitter sometimes.
I see nothing but crazy shit all the day. And I follow some people that aren't getting the vaccine because they go to the sauna to sweat out all the bad stuff in their body. And I just think it's crazy. And I see a lot of misinformation out there. I know you see a lot of misinformation out there. But let's move on to our next segment.
We can take our pundit hats off.
Let's take our pundit hat off. Okay. Buy or sell. Mean Green football will win 6 or more games.
I'm buying. I'm taking over.
I'm buying.
I'm going to buy 2. I think it's tough, but I think it's possible. You're going to have to get a couple upset wins. I think the defense might surprise some people this year. It was, awful last year. Gave up a lot of yards, set a bowl record for most rushing yards given up against App State in the Myrtle Beach Bowl.
That's a prestige bowl.
Prestigious, yeah, the prestigious Myrtle Beach Bowl. But yeah, it was the defense was not good last year. There's a new defensive coordinator. The players who I've talked to, it sounds like they're really buying into whatever the new scheme is kind of going to be here with the defense. So I think, and that's the thing, is the Seth Luttrell offense is always has the ability to put up 35, 45 points a game. So if you can just hold teams to under that, you're going to win some games. So I'm going to take the over. It may be a 6-6 take the over, but I'll take it.
You mean a 6-6, 7-5?
I'll say 7-5. New Orleans Bowl.
Okay. Well, what do you think of coaches that win the Boca Raton Bowl or the Myrtle Beach Bowl or the Bad Boy Mower Gasparilla Bowl, and they wear that ring like it's a Super Bowl ring? What do you think about that?
I'm not a fan. I guess I've never played a down of organized football to understand what goes into that at the college level. I'm just the media man. So I guess if you want to wear your Myrtle Beach Bowl ring around, go for it. But I've never really understood it as a, hey, look at this stuff I've done. If it's like, I've seen guys wear their national championship rings around.
Okay.
And that's one thing, but
No, that's acceptable.
Yeah, your Texas Bowl presented by AutoZone Park Care, whatever. I'm not a fan of that.
Even like a New Year's Six Bowl, you win the Peach Bowl, you wear like the church and shit.
I think you get to wear it to the end of team banquet.
Yeah, you wear it to the end of team banquet.
Spaghetti dinner.
What do you got, Sebastian?
All right. So, I know we love our spaghetti dinners, but I'm going to go back to the Mean Green, and I'm going to do another over-under for you.
Okay.
So, Jalen Darden. So, NFL draft soon.
Yep.
Over, under.
Fourth round.
Yeah, fourth round.
I'm going to say over. I say he gets picked after round 4.
Oh,
I don't like to say that because I think he is a top 3 round quality player. But just knowing another thing you got to think of is the Mean Green have the longest NFL draft drought in college football right now. They have not had a pick taken since 2004.
You'll take anything.
So there's a lot of people in draft rooms who are going to look away a little bit because of that, or he's not going to get the attention he should get because of that. Mm-hmm. So that being said, I do think he breaks the draft drought. I think some team's going to take a flyer on him. I just don't think it'll be until the later rounds, but that's not to say I don't think he's a top 3 round talent.
No,
I think
it's completely ridiculous with Julian Edelman retiring that instantaneously there's even a debate about Hall of Fame. But he did make even more mainstream that slot receiver position. So you think that helps his case at all?
I think it does a little bit because he's such a typical slot receiver and thrives in that position. And I think that'll translate brilliantly to the NFL. If anything, I think it might work better in the NFL than it did even at North Texas. And the numbers he put up at North Texas were ridiculous. So I do think that gives him a little bit of a boost heading into the draft.
I think so. Now, let's move on to this. What age were you when you first realized your own mortality?
Well, let's see. Probably at some point in early college was when it hit me in the face.
Really?
I'd say so.
And okay, so for me, I was 12 when I first really thought about it, and I cried that whole summer. That whole summer was a wasted summer because I was just crying all the time.
See, I never had that. I lived in such a pristine little bubble that everything was so happy, glory, honky-dory until really my college years.
That is amazing, because what it was for me, it was when my uncle told me he was an atheist, and he described what it was, and that was the first time I had grappled with like the idea that there could be nothing. And then that summer I'd be mowing the lawn or something, but I'd be crying. So everything I'd be doing, I'd be crying. So when you first grappled with your own mortality, what kind of impact did that have on you? And once we figure it out, we all kind of carry it to varying levels. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, how often are you thinking about that?
I'd say, it ebbs and flows, but I'd say, man, I don't want to say 5 is like a cop out, but I kind of feel like that's what it's headed towards.
That's where I'm at too.
Yeah, it's kind of at a 5. It's there sometimes, it's not. And I guess it was, I mean, I kind of just approach it as value everything you've got right now. That's kind of how I push it to the side, if you will. Now at the same time, I don't think I'm as far in your camp as your uncle was, who's just a full-blown atheist who says he believes in or says there's nothing. I might have a little different viewpoint than he does, but I kind of try and tend to put more value in the things that are going on that I have in front of me, and things like my family and my work that I enjoy doing. I try and cherish those moments and not take them for granted.
That's a good answer. And I think I'm at a 5 now, but there's different points where I range to like a 6 or a 7. So I can't go to a fast food place without thinking, if this is cooked wrong, I could die. Like somebody's fuck up at the drive-thru could kill me, and that'll be it. That'll be the lights out. Then, and I don't want to get too deep into this rabbit hole, but I see so much bad stuff in the media. I see people dying every day, and I watch the world news, and it's like 4 people died in Myanmar or in Thailand, and it's like we don't even care about that. So that's not even on our radar. So if someone in your community dies, you kind of know about it, and I feel like I'm chasing this really too far down. Any thoughts on that?
You need to get in the sauna. You need to sweat it out.
Just sweat out your COVID right now. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I mean, to go off what you said, I agree. There's so much crap that goes on that's bad, and it really feels sometimes like it's hard to even keep track of it all, because like you said, it's like something in your community is, you may get wind of it, and that's just one tiny little sliver of the entire operation. So you got people blowing up over in the Middle East or in wherever, and you see 4 people died in Mumbai or whatnot. And it's just like, oh yeah, that's not even registering on here because we've got enough problems back home as it is.
Somebody's died since we started this podcast.
Yep.
Somebody has surely died.
Yep. Someone somewhere has.
The lights went out. Okay, so let me change gears a little and do a little segment we like to call trivia.
Okay.
The late Hilmar Moore of Richmond, Texas, is considered the longest serving mayor in U.S. history. When he passed away in 2012, how many years had he served?
Man, longest serving mayor. This could really open up a can of worms.
He was elected when he was 29.
He was elected when he was 29, and he passed away in 2012.
Yes.
And there's got to be there's no like mayoral limits or anything. My guess would be, I'm going to say north of 50 years.
Well, you're right, but you gave such a vague answer that I don't want to give you any credit for that.
Okay, so let me say, I'll pin it down to exactly, I say he went 62 years.
Wow. 63 years, 2 months, and 73 days.
Oh man, I was off by a year. Holy smokes.
And after he died, his wife was mayor for 8 years. And before he was mayor, his father had been mayor for 8 years.
Holy cow. So that is, what is that? 74-ish odd years of an unbroken family line of mayors?
Of more rule. Yeah. Of more family rule in Richmond, Texas.
Wow.
It was starting, I don't know if you read about it in the news, it was starting to become something of a dictatorship near the end. They kind of clamped down on press freedom. Yeah, it was in the news. Bonus round. Where was he born?
It can't be Richmond because that would be too
Too
easy.
easy.
I'm gonna pull my own connections out of a hat here and say Houston, Texas.
No, I'll tell you.
Where
It's
was
not
he?
on there. I don't know if it's on there. San Antonio, Texas.
I should have guessed San Antonio.
The oldest mayor in U.S. history was born in San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio, Texas. See, I should have gone with the Reina. When in doubt, go with the Reina connections.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Not
sir.
my own.
So
Continue.
that's good. So I know this whole thing's been scattershot. You know, we're trying to get this off the ground. Haven't had a good gauge of when to serious it up and not. Let me ask you this. You've been so dedicated to your craft. We all started in radio. Now I'm in politics. Now Trinkle's in corporate. Everybody we worked with has almost all left the radio world. And you're still grinding in it. You're the voice of the Mean Green. You know, you're a respected voice on UNT, on Denton Sports. Just like talk to me about, I don't know, just picking something and actually staying with it and being good at it and working your way up in it.
Man, that's tough because there's been plenty of times where I have been fed up with radio and ready to march out the door, and for some reason keep coming back to it. I think the biggest thing is I love it too much. It's almost like an abusive relationship in a way, to use a poignant metaphor. But I enjoy it so much that every time I think about walking away from it, I can't do it because I don't know what else I would do. And it kind of goes back to your existential questions, Raina, in the earlier going, where it's just like, I don't know what else I'd do besides radio. I look at my parents. My mom works for a school district. That doesn't appeal to me. My dad is a art director for an advertising agency. That seemed boring to me. Everything else I try and look for, it's just I don't feel like I can get the same enjoyment that I get out of it with radio. And even when radio gets tough and the slog is sloggy and it's just beating the hell out of you, every time I pop on a headset, it's still a blast to do every time. So that's why I think I keep coming back to it. And it's kind of one of those things where you really have to have a passion for it to be able to get it to work. And you can say that about a lot of things, but I think radio is one of those industries where you really have to kind of have a passion for it to keep going.
And I think that passion definitely comes through on your commentating. How much would you say is your identity, both like on social media and your self-identity and your identity from others, like your friends? How much of it is like tied to you being the radio guy and you being the UNT sports guy?
A lot of it. I think as far as like public persona goes, it's probably the majority of it. Because most people who know me through UNT, and they know that I do the games for football and basketball. And all of that is connected through my Twitter, which my Twitter is basically 90% UNT related stuff. So I'd say, man, if I had to quantify it, more than half of my identity overall and how I relate to people is probably at least tied to either UNT or radio in some way or another.
Mm-hmm. And have you ever thought of like do you see you're 26?
20, I'll be 26 in 2 months.
Okay, so do you see in the next 26 years, like, do you see you going a different way career route, or do you see yourself becoming like the ultimate super saiyan, like UNT guy? Like, which way do you think you're gonna go?
I mean, I'll always keep feelers out for other opportunities and other things that come along. But at the same time, too, you say that, and I could completely see myself being the UNT radio mogul, if you will, 26 years from now. Zac Babb, the guy who just never left.
The UNT historian.
Yeah,
you already are in a way.
Yeah, I'm kind of their unofficial historian in a way.
I mean, there's bullshit. There's bullshit I read on your Twitter that like I would never. That people on ESPN or CBS Sports like wouldn't think to post.
Yeah. So it's weird pockets of knowledge that I have about UNT is something that makes me think I could stay there for a very long time and still get a kick out of it.
Well, dope. And I wanted to have you on the show because I think you're interesting. I think you're a great friend.
Fix it.
And, you know, getting to that last question, I really think like it's impressive how you've stuck on this one thing and you've like really made it yours when there's people like us that are like 27 trying to start a podcast now, you know, because we're throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. So thank you for being on the second episode of our show.
No problem. Not at all. Thanks for having me.